Ladies and gentlemen, that truth is this. To grow, you must suffer. Now, I know that might not sound very appealing. After all, who wants to suffer? We'd all prefer a life of ease and comfort, wouldn't we? But let me tell you something. That kind of life doesn't lead to growth. It doesn't lead to success. It doesn't lead to fulfillment. So you see, your suffering is not the enemy. Suffering is the teacher. It's the catalyst for change, the forge in which we are shaped and strengthened. Without suffering, without challenges, without adversity, we remain stagnant. We never reach our full potential. We never become the person we're capable of being. Now I'm not talking about needless suffering or self-inflicted pain. We're talking about the kind of suffering that comes from pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone, from taking on challenges that seem too big, from facing your fears and doing the things that scare you. This is the kind of suffering that leads to growth. Think about it for a moment. When do you learn the most? When things are easy or when they're hard? When do you grow the most? When life is comfortable or when it's challenging? I'll tell you from my own experience and from observing thousands of people over the years. Growth always comes from challenge. Always. So let's consider physical fitness for a moment. If you want to get stronger, what do you have to do? You have to lift weights that are heavy enough to strain your muscles. You have to push yourself to the point where it's uncomfortable, where it hurts a little. That's how muscles grow. They break down under stress and then they rebuild stronger than before. The same principle applies to every area of our lives. Want to grow intellectually, you've got to tackle subjects that are difficult, that stretch your mind. Want to grow emotionally, you've got to face your fears, confront your insecurities. Want to grow in your career, you've got to take on responsibilities that are beyond your current capabilities. In each case, growth comes from stepping out of your comfort zone and into the zone of discomfort. It comes from embracing the suffering that comes with challenge and difficulty. Now I can already hear some of you thinking, but Jim, I don't want to suffer, I just want to be happy. And I understand that. We all want to be happy. But here's the thing. True happiness, lasting fulfillment, doesn't come from avoiding suffering. It comes from overcoming it. Think about the times in your life when you felt the most proud, most satisfied. I bet they weren't times when everything was easy. They were times when you overcame something difficult, when you pushed through a challenge, when you achieved something you weren't sure you could do. That's because there's a deep satisfaction that comes from growth, from becoming more than you were before. And that kind of growth only comes through suffering. So let me share a personal story with you. When I was a young man, I was broke, discouraged, and didn't know where my life was headed. I was suffering, but I was suffering without purpose. I was just existing, not growing. Then one day I met my mentor, Earl Shove. He taught me that I could use my suffering as a catalyst for change. He said to me, Jim, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge, wish for more wisdom. Those words changed my life. They helped me see that my suffering wasn't something to avoid, but something to use. From that day forward, I started to embrace challenges. I started to seek out difficult tasks. I started to push myself beyond what I thought I was capable of. And you know what? It was hard. It was uncomfortable. Sometimes it was downright painful. But with each challenge I overcame, with each difficulty I pushed through, I grew. I became stronger, smarter, more capable. And that's what I want for each and every one of you. Well, I want you to embrace the suffering that leads to growth. I want you to seek out challenges, to push yourselves beyond your limits, because that's where the magic happens. That's where you become the person you're meant to be. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Growth never is, but I'm saying it's going to be worth it. The person you'll become on the other side of that suffering will be stronger, more resilient, more capable than you ever thought possible. So how do we do this? How do we embrace suffering for the sake of growth? Well, the first step is to change our mindset. Instead of seeing challenges as something to avoid, we need to start seeing them as opportunities for growth. When you face a difficult situation, instead of thinking, why has this happened to me? Try thinking, what can I learn from this? How can this help me grow? This shift in perspective can make all the difference. It turns suffering from something that happens to you into something that you use. It puts you in control. Instead of being a victim of your circumstances, you become the architect of your growth. The second step is to actively seek out challenges. Don't wait for difficulties to come to you. Go out and find them. Set goals that scare you a little. Take on projects that you're not sure you can handle. Put yourself in situations where you have to stretch and grow. Now, I'm not saying you should bite off more than you can chew. Start with challenges that are just beyond your current capabilities. As you grow, you can take on bigger and bigger challenges. The key is to always be pushing yourself, always be reaching for that next level. The third step is to develop resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from setback, to keep going when things get tough. And let me tell you, if you're going to embrace suffering for the sake of growth, you're going to need resilience. How do you develop resilience? Well, it's a lot like building physical strength. You start small and work your way up. You face small challenges and overcome them. Each time you do, you build a little more resilience. Over time, you'll find that you can handle bigger and bigger challenges. Remember, resilience isn't about never falling down. It's about always getting back up. Every time you face a challenge and push through, you're building your resilience muscle. You're becoming stronger, more capable of handling whatever life throws at you. Now let's talk about the different types of suffering we might face on our journey of growth, because not all suffering is created equal, and it's important to understand the difference between productive suffering and unproductive suffering. Productive suffering is the kind that leads to growth. It's the suffering that comes from pushing yourself, from taking on challenges, from stepping out of your comfort zone. This is the kind of suffering we want to embrace. Unproductive suffering, on the other hand, is suffering that doesn't lead anywhere. It's the kind of suffering that comes from making the same mistakes over and over, from staying in bad situations when we have the power to change them, from refusing to learn and grow. Our goal should be to minimize unproductive suffering and maximize productive suffering. We want to suffer smart, if you will. We want to make sure that our suffering is always in service of our growth. So how do we do that? Well, it starts with self-awareness. We need to be honest with ourselves about the sources of our suffering. Are we suffering because we're pushing ourselves to grow, or are we suffering because we're stuck in old patterns? Are we suffering because we're taking on new challenges or because we're avoiding them? Once we have that awareness, we can make conscious choices about our suffering. We can choose to embrace the productive suffering that leads to growth and work to eliminate the unproductive suffering that holds us back. Now, I want to address something that I know many of you are thinking. Jim, you might be saying, this all sounds well and good, but I'm already suffering. I've got problems in my life that I didn't choose. How does that fit into this idea of suffering for growth? So that's an excellent question. It brings us to an important point. Life will bring us suffering whether we choose it or not. We'll all face challenges, setbacks, and difficulties. The key is how we respond to that suffering. You see, we always have a choice. When suffering comes our way, we can either let it defeat us, or we can use it as an opportunity for growth. We can either become victims of our circumstances, or we can become victors over them. Let me give you an example. Say you lose your job, that's a form of suffering that you didn't choose. That's painful, it's scary, and it's not something anyone would wish for. But in that moment, you have a choice. You can either let that setback defeat you, or you can use it as an opportunity to grow. Maybe losing that job is the push you need to finally start that business you've been dreaming about. Maybe it's an opportunity to reassess your career path and find work that's more fulfilling. Maybe it's a chance to develop new skills that will make you more valuable in the job market. So the suffering is the same. But your response to it can make all the difference by choosing to see it as an opportunity for growth. You transform that suffering from something that happens to you into something that happens for you. This is the mindset of successful people. They don't avoid suffering, they use it, they don't run from challenges, they run towards them. They understand that every setback is a setup for a comeback. Every difficulty is an opportunity for growth. Now I want to be clear about something. When I say to grow, you must suffer, I'm not saying that suffering alone is enough. Plenty of people suffer without growing. The key is to suffer with purpose, to suffer with a goal in mind. Think of it like exercise. Just feeling pain isn't enough to make you stronger. You need to feel pain with a purpose. The purpose of building muscle, improving endurance, enhancing your health. It's the same with suffering in life. The suffering needs to be directed towards a goal, towards growth. So how do we do that? How do we make sure our suffering is purposeful? Well, it starts with having a clear vision of what we want to achieve. We need to know where we're going, what we're working towards. Without that vision, our suffering is just pain without purpose. Once we have that vision, we can start to see our challenges and difficulties as steps on the path to achieving it. That difficult project at work, it's not just a source of stress, it's an opportunity to develop new skills that will help you reach your career goals. That tough conversation you need to have. It's not just uncomfortable, it's a chance to improve your communication skills and strengthen your relationship. By connecting our suffering to our goals, we give it meaning. We transform it from something we endure to something we use. Now let's talk about discipline for a moment. Because if we're going to embrace suffering for the sake of growth, we're going to need discipline. Lots of it. Discipline is what gets us out of bed when we'd rather sleep in. What keeps us working when we'd rather quit? It's what pushes us to face our fears when we'd rather hide from them. In short, discipline is what allows us to choose productive suffering over comfort. So here's the thing about discipline. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Every time you choose to do the hard thing instead of the easy thing, you're building your discipline muscle. Every time you push through discomfort for the sake of growth, you're getting stronger. And the beautiful thing is your discipline grows. Your capacity for growth grows with it. You become capable of taking on bigger challenges, of pushing yourself further, of achieving things you never thought possible. So how do we develop discipline? Well, it starts with small choices. Choose to get up a little earlier each day. Choose to tackle that difficult task first thing in the morning. Choose to have that tough conversation instead of avoiding it. Each of these small choices builds your discipline muscle a little bit more over time. These small choices add up. They create habits, and those habits shape your character. Before you know it, discipline isn't something you have to force yourself to do. It's just who you are. Now I want to address something that I know some of you are thinking. Jim, you might be saying, this all sounds great, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of pain. I'm afraid of the unknown. And to that I say, good. Fear is a sign that you're on the right track. Fear means you're pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. Fear means you're growing. You see, courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Every great achievement in history was preceded by fear. Every successful person you admire has felt fear. The difference is they didn't let that fear stop them. So don't try to eliminate your fear. Instead, learn to use it. Let it be a signal that you're on the right path, that you're pushing yourself to grow. Let it fuel you, motivate you, drive you forward. Remember, on the other side of your fear is everything you want. On the other side of that suffering is growth. On the other side of that challenge is the person you're meant to become. Now let's talk about failure for a moment. Because if you're going to embrace suffering for the sake of growth, you're going to fail a lot. And that's okay. In fact, it's more than okay. It's necessary. You see, failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is a part of success. It's a stepping stone on the path to achievement. Every successful person you admire has failed more times than you can count. The difference is they didn't let those failures stop them. Instead, they used their failures as learning opportunities. They analyzed what went wrong, figured out how to do better next time, and then tried again, and again, and again, until they succeeded. This is the mindset we need to adopt if we're going to grow through suffering. We need to see our failures not as endpoints, but as data points, not as reasons to quit, but as opportunities to learn and improve. So next time you fail, and you will fail, if you're pushing yourself to grow, don't beat yourself up. Don't see it as a sign that you're not cut out for success. Instead, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to get better? Remember, the only real failure is the failure to learn from your mistakes. Everything else is just a stepping stone on the path to success. So now I want to talk about something that's crucial if we're going to embrace suffering for the sake of growth. Support, because while the journey of growth is personal, it doesn't have to be solitary. In fact, having the right support system can make all the difference. It can provide encouragement when you're struggling, wisdom when you're confused, and accountability when you're tempted to give up. So surround yourself with people who understand what you're trying to do. People who support your goals, who believe in your potential, who will push you to keep going when things get tough. This might mean joining a mastermind group, finding a mentor, or simply cultivating friendships with people who are also committed to growth. Whatever form it takes, make sure you have people in your corner who will support you on this journey. Because let me tell you, there will be times when you want to quit. Times when the suffering seems too much, when the challenge seems too big. In those moments, having people who believe in you can make all the difference. They can remind you of why you started this journey in the first place. They can help you see the progress you've made when all you can see is how far you still have to go. They can offer a fresh perspective when you're stuck. But remember, support doesn't mean coddle. The best support comes from people who will tell you the truth, even when it's hard to hear. People who will challenge you to be better, who won't let you settle for less than your best. So seek out those relationships. Cultivate them, invest in them, because they will be a crucial resource on your journey of growth through suffering. Now let's talk about patience. Because if we're going to grow through suffering, we need to understand that it's not going to happen overnight. Growth takes time. It's a process, not an event. Think about a tree. It doesn't grow to its full height in a day or a week or even a year. It grows slowly, steadily over many years. And as it grows, it faces all kinds of challenges. Storms, droughts, harsh winters, but it keeps growing. Keeps pushing upward. Keeps reaching for the sky. We need to adopt the same mindset. We need to understand that our growth will happen gradually. Over time, there will be setbacks. There will be periods where it feels like we're not making any progress at all. But if we stay committed, if we keep pushing forward, we will grow. This is where so many people go wrong. They expect instant results, and when they don't get them, they give up. They suffer for a little while, don't see immediate growth, and decide it's not worth it. But the real magic happens when you stick with it. When you keep pushing through the suffering, keep embracing the challenges. Keep striving for growth, even when you can't see the results yet. Because here's the thing. Growth is often invisible at first, like a seed germinating underground. A lot of your growth will happen beneath the surface, where you can't see it. But make no mistake, it is happening. So be patient with yourself. Trust the process. Know that every challenge you face, every difficulty you overcome is contributing to your growth, even if you can't see it yet. And then remember, the greatest achievements take time. The most successful people are often those who are willing to suffer the most, for the longest without giving up. They're the ones who kept pushing, kept growing, kept believing, even when others had given up on them. So, my friends, as we come to the end of our time together, I want to leave you with this final thought. Embracing suffering for the sake of growth is not easy. It's not comfortable. It's not something that most people are willing to do, but it is the path to becoming the best version of yourself. It's the way to achieve things you never thought possible. It's how you become the person you're meant to be. Remember, every challenge is an opportunity. Every setback is a setup for a comeback. Every moment of suffering is a chance to grow. So don't run from the difficult times. Don't shy away from the challenges. Instead, lean into them, use them. Let them shape you, strengthen you, transform you, because on the other side of that suffering is growth. On the other side of that pain is progress. On the other side of that challenge is the person you've always dreamed of becoming. Let's go forth from here with a new perspective on suffering. See it as something to avoid, but as something to embrace. Use it as the powerful tool it is to sculpt yourself into the person you want to be. Remember, to grow, you must suffer. But that suffering, when embraced with purpose and perseverance, will lead you to heights you never imagined possible. The journey won't be easy, but I promise you it will be worth it. Now go out there and grow.